I'm gonna go out on a limb and make the bold assumption that people who watch this channel are familiar with the space industry. After all, I do make a weekly series documenting space news. So, to that end, you may have heard of Rocket Factory Augsburg, or RFA for short. For those who don't know them, RFA is a German startup in the micro-launcher market who have the lofty ambition to revolutionize the market with inexpensive yet technically superior rockets from the assembly line. Now, being from Germany, they're no stranger to automotive production lines, and the automotive industry is a big role model for the team. And as it happens, they released an official Kerbal Space Program mod. It's a really extensive one, actually. It features the parts necessary to construct their rocket, the RFA-1, but that's not all. It also contains an in-game mission challenge to deorbit a dead satellite, stranded in high elliptical orbit around Kerbin. And it's this mod that I'll be showcasing today. I'll talk more about the RFA-1 rocket as the mission pans out, I'm sure, but let's begin by quickly installing the mod. Here you can see me downloading it, and since it doesn't just contain stuff for the game data folder, and you need to add stuff to other parts of your install directory, I'm actually just going to take the contents of the Kerbal Space Program file from the zip and drop it directly into my main game install directory, and from there all the bits should extract and merge themselves into the right places. So yeah, overall, pretty easy mod to install. Let's just fire up KSP64.exe and see if it worked. So here we are on the main menu. We're going to go start game, but rather than clicking on resume saved or indeed start new, we're going to go on to play missions. And in theory, yep, here we are. We have some RFA custom missions. So we've got RFA debris removal. A computer glitch during station keeping resulted in the CGS-014 communication satellite burning the entirety of its propellant and placing itself in a highly elliptical orbit. You are to launch a debris removal mission using an RFA-1 to deorbit this now defunct satellite before it can pose further problems. And the other one is RFA First Launch, which has just successfully launched the RFA-1 and demonstrate its capability by launching a small comsat to this kind of orbit. So I think this is probably the easier mission of the two, right? So let's start with this one. Here we are on the pad, and wow, this UI is tiny in 4K. Let's just zoom in and look at it again. This mission will showcase the capabilities of our new rocket, the RFA-1. The first launch will be to deliver a satellite to a 200 by 200 kilometer 24-degree inclination orbit. The mission will be complete when the satellite reaches its orbit. There may even be a bonus for managing a precision orbital insertion. Likewise, taking too long to deliver the satellite will look bad, so try not to take too long. And finally, if the rocket is lost or the satellite doesn't reach its orbit, the mission will fail, so don't be too hasty in your approach. That sounds fair enough to me. Everything looks pretty good on the pad, so let's just go ahead and launch. And we are now airborne, thanks to the 9 Helix engines firing away there. A fun fact, the Helix engine is the first European engine with staged combustion, and it's the first orbital class rocket engine to be named by the spaceflight community. Which is refreshing. I was expecting engine phase or something like that, so Helix is a welcome suggestion. Anyway, the Helix engine was successfully tested in Sweden back in 2021, and this engine test netted RFA the title of first rocket company in Western Europe to test fire an engine, and only the 9th company worldwide. I can't wait to see it fire for the first time during their first launch attempt when that happens. But for now, well, I do hope that this video serves as an apt alternative. Though these 9 particular Helix engines are no longer of any use to me because we've run out of liquid fuel and oxidizer in the first stage. We can stage and ignite the single Raptor engine. Guys, covering Starship news really has ruined me, hasn't it? Ignite the single vacuum Helix engine that's going to get our upper stage to almost its final location. There is one more stage after this one that's like a small monopropellant powered payload tug, which funnily enough is a part that I've always wanted in KSP1 or KSP2, and that's, you know, a attached node mounted monopropellant engine, not a radially attached monopropellant engine. That would be really, really nice to have in either of these games in stock. Obviously out of the question for KSP1. For KSP2, listen up. Maybe give us an RFA-style monopropellant engine. Anyway, we are most of the way to our destination orbit, but there's a couple of things we need to do. First of all, as you can see, take a look at the Kerbal Engineer Redux readout to the top left of the screen. Our inclination is currently about 22 degrees. we need 24 degrees. So before we get to our apoapsis and perform our final circularization burn, I'm going to want to perform a normal burn, as in like a normal vector burn, not like a regular everyday burn, if that's how you might have interpreted that, to get ourselves onto a 24-degree inclination, and then we can perform our circularization. And because I'm such a great, smart person, I plan the circularization burn first, and then I changed my orbits to 24 degrees. So now that planned maneuver node is going to be wrong. So we're going to need to plot that again to make sure we get a nice, clear, symmetrical 200 by 200 kilometer orbit, basically. I don't know what the exact kind of wiggle room there is in this mission, but I think it's very fine. Like, you can't have a 201 kilometer apoapsis and 199 kilometer periapsis, for example. Both need to be 200. I don't think it matters that much beyond there. As long as it's 200 and something, you're fine. So maybe like having an orbit of 200.6 apogee and a 200.2 perigee. That's fine, I think. I don't know. I can't remember what orbit I actually got into, but I did pass this mission, so I guess we'll find out together. But oh my goodness, look at that. We have exhausted the second stage of the RFA-1. Now we can just use that little monopropellant tug that I mentioned earlier. Deploy the solar panels of the satellite as well. Don't want to run out of electricity. That would be very sad, wouldn't it? And then we can warp around to periapsis to just lower our apoapsis to 200 point something kilometers. There we have it, everyone. Sorry for the very small UI, but look at that. We passed with flying colors. 12,000 points, which nets us the gold award. We got good timekeeping, good fuel efficiency. Happy days. Now, guys, obviously, if you download this mod, you can have a go at this mission and see if you beat my score. So try it out, let me know in the comments down below if you managed to beat my score, and if you did beat my score, what did you get? Probably the best way actually would be to tweet it at me or put it in my Discord or use my subreddit, r/Matt subreddit, and I check that a lot. So yeah, you post your pictures there if you manage to get a better score than me on that. But now it's time to waste no further ado and try out the second, more challenging mission that comes with this mod pack. Actually, before we do that, I know in my KSP videos it's customary for me to build the rocket that I'm flying, but obviously in this video I'm using a pre-built mission that already has the rocket built. So let's go ahead and do a time-lapse build of this rocket, but not in the way that you think. That's right! Rocket Factory Augsburg did not just make an official Kerbal Space Program mod for their rocket, they also made an official Lego set that I was given when I went to the Easter event in February when KSP2 was doing its pre-release thing. How amazing is this? So RFA-1, best friends, I wish SpaceX, Rocket Lab, if you guys don't make your own Lego sets, how can you possibly be the best launch provider? Rocket Factory Augsburg, best rocket company. Look at this! I've got a model. I'm at a loss for words. And if you want to build your own Lego model of the RFA-1, I'm going to leave a link in the description to download the PDF for the official Rocket Factory Augsburg Lego set. Very epic. Anyway, let's transition now to... So for the sake of brevity, let's just launch right away, and while I perform the gravity turn, I'll remind you of this mission's brief and read what the NPCs say before liftoff. A computer glitch during station keeping resulted in the CGS-014 communication satellite burning the entirety of its propellant and placing itself in a highly elliptical orbit. You are to launch a debris removal mission using an RFA-1 to deorbit this now defunct satellite before it can pose further problems. Now, following the loss of the satellite, we have the opportunity to further demonstrate our capabilities. The upper stage of RFA-1 has been modified to undertake a debris removal mission to deorbit the lost communication satellite. Launch to orbit, rendezvous with the target satellite, and then deorbit it. It seems simple, but it's more complicated than it might seem. The target satellite can be found at a highly elliptical orbit, and it also has a 10-degree inclination. So remember to take that into account when planning the intercept. The orbit of the ComSat does take it past the moon, so a flyby isn't out of the question and may provide an alternate means of deorbiting the satellite. Everyone understands that highly elliptical orbits take time to reach, but we can expect less prestige if we take an unreasonably long time to complete the mission. Basically, the mission will be considered complete when the satellite has been deorbited. Likewise, the mission will be considered a complete failure if the rocket is lost prior to completing the mission objective. And I'd agree with that. So that's the brief. On screen you can see we've got the boring part out of the way. Now I'm just trying to get my orbit to intersect with the orbit of that stranded satellite. So I launched at kind of a 10-degree inclination to line my orbital line up with the dead satellite. Although looking at the map screen, I probably should have waited a little bit before launching because now we're not actually at the right tilt. So I'm going to have to change my inclination a bit just so that our orbital line does indeed cross the satellite's orbital line, and then we'll make a maneuver node. You can see we're doing that now at that point at which our orbits cross. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to use the node to make my orbit match the satellite. That's going to make it much easier to then adjust so that we get a nice close encounter. As you can see, once our orbit is close to the satellites, we can then drag on the retrograde marker until we reach a point where we've got a nice close intercept, which should fall fairly close to that maneuver node. And that's what I've done whilst I was talking about all of that. I apologize, I'm not being particularly thorough about how to get this sort of rendezvous. This is kind of a challenging rendezvous to do, so this isn't really the best place for me to do a tutorial on how to do orbital rendezvous in Kerbal Space Program. I would start with things like equatorial, then, you know, not massively eccentric orbits with like big inclination. Start small and then eventually you'll kind of just, it should hopefully click, and then this stuff will kind of be a bit more intuitive when it comes to, you know, more difficult things like this. But during that little speech, our second stage was spent, so now we're on our final stage, which has a very generous almost 1 kilometer of delta V inside, so it should be more than enough to get an encounter with this satellite, and there we are. I'd like to cancel the maneuver node at the very last second, just do the last part of the burn by eye. Didn't really work that well because I massively then overshot. This is a very, very precise science, this. As you can see, I'm just using RCS going back and forth, and it is still sending that encounter node going back and forth. So what I did was I then just disabled various RCS ports and changed the thrust limiter to, and it was like, it's a lot of cutting back and forth from the map screen, and doing it in time lapse, it's hard to see what's going on, and playing it at real time speed would just take ages. So I'm going to crossfade to the point where I got a nice close separation. Whoa, a star wipe. How cool was that? And there we are. 0.8 kilometers. That was about as close as I could get it, to be honest, guys. I could have probably faffed around a bit and got it closer, but it's splitting hairs. It's 800 meters. I'm sure we can manage with that. So let's extend the solar panels, make sure we don't, run out of electricity, and then time warp around to our maneuver. It's going to take a while, obviously, but hopefully this is still within the acceptable realm of quick time frame, at least by this mission's scoring parameters. I really want to get gold on all the missions, and by all the missions I mean both. There's only 2, right? We got gold on the first one. I'm shooting for gold on this one too. Here we are, just killing off our speed relative to our target, so we should be about a kilometer away from it at this point. Then we can just point towards it, burn to a speed of like 10 meters per second relative to the target, and just cruise on towards it. I guess I went with 8 in the end. I just re-enable my RCS whilst we're cruising there as well, and get ready to form our, I don't want to say docking, because we're not docking to it, are we? We've got the claw there. So the claw is going to grasp the spacecraft in some way, and then we can, deorbit the whole thing. We've got loads of delta V left, 350-ish meters per second in this. Although obviously that number is going to drop substantially once we dock to this dead satellite, because the dead satellite's going to add a lot of dead weight, as it were, which is of course going to lower our delta V, but hopefully not significantly. Given the very, very high eccentricity of this satellite, it's going to take minimal delta V to deorbit from apoapsis. My aim here was to try and grab the metal body. Well, it's all made of metal, isn't it? That central core body, because I wanted to be grabbing something close to the center of mass of this satellite, so I wanted to try and grab that probe body in the middle. And it doesn't seem to be up. Oh, well, never mind. Luckily, with the power of quick saves, we can revert to an earlier point in the mission, and we can try that again. So I didn't know if maybe that was a glitch and the claw wasn't working, so I just disarmed it and rearmed it and tried again. But once again, we just sort of bounced off the probe body. Spoiler alert, it hasn't happened yet. We bounced off, but then we ended up being able to grab the communications dish. So anyone wants to try this mission out, I'll leave a download to the mod in the description, obviously, which includes all the missions. Be mindful of the fact that it doesn't seem possible to dock to the satellite's core. You need to dock to another part, I suppose. Anyway, we can now warp up to apoapsis, perform a retrograde burn, and watch the whole thing explode on re-entry, thus fulfilling all mission requirements, and we can net our gold medal. Yep, all exploding as planned. Hang on. It seems that the satellite is made of incredibly strong materials. It could survive very high velocity Kerbin re-entry. But no matter, it'll hit the sea very hard, it'll get destroyed there. Well, That's a shame. The NPC text there stated that the satellite has been deorbited, but a cleanup operation will now be required. Mission successful. We only got bronze, 8,500 points, but I'm guessing we know why. Obviously, we have to completely destroy the satellite, so let's reload a quick save and actually get a stupid re-entry and time warp into the planet for good measure, thus completely destroying it. Here we go, preparing to re-enter at time warp speed. Boom, completely done. Let's do this. 9,500, we got silver, but no gold. How on earth do we get gold? At this point I was scratching my head and then I remembered, I remember in the mission brief it mentioned something about the Mun. Maybe I have to crash this thing on the Mun to get the gold. So I then reloaded an earlier quick save, and instead of just planning a dumb retrograde burn to get ourselves to re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere, I meticulously planned a maneuver node that would get us we had like literally 1 meter per second of delta V to spare, a Mun encounter that would get us to crash onto the surface of the Mun, thus fulfilling the bonus achievement, maybe, because it mentioned that there was opportunity for a Mun. Well, it didn't specifically say crashed into the Mun. The mission just said there's a Mun flyby in this satellite's future, which could, give opportunity for other means of deorbiting. However you want to interpret that. I interpreted that as being, we should crash it into the surface of the Mun. I wouldn't advise that, by the way, Rocket Factory Augsburg, if you're watching this, because that might introduce things like microorganisms onto the surface of the moon, things like that. We don't know if the satellite, it should have been built in a clean room, right? But you never know. Probably not a good idea to be smashing things onto the surface of the Mun. But what do I know, eh? I'm just a regular Kerbal Space Program gamer, epic gamer. But yeah, here we are, time warping around, approaching the Mun. Let's smash this thing into the surface of the Mun, obliterating it in the process, thus fulfilling the gold achievement. Here we go. In 3, in 2, in 1. I didn't time this very well. In 0. There we are. Let's press continue. What? 8,500 points? I'm back to bronze, even though I crashed into the surface of the Mun, much more difficult?
What are you talking about, Rocket Factory Augsburg?
You know what? Screw it. Rocket Factory Augsburg, I'm not good enough for you. You think I'm not good enough for you? You're not good enough for me. What are you building? Piddly little satellite launchers? I'm going to show you how to build a real rocket that can launch crew to orbit using your own parts. So you have the technology. It's only your inferior intellect that's stopping you from doing this. So let me show you how it's done. You got to slap 4 of your mediocre upper stages together, and then slap 4 of your mediocre lower stages together. And Robert's your father's brother. I've just designed a better rocket than you guys. What do you have to say for yourselves? And there it is, lifting off. Whew. I'm sorry. I just need to take a breather. I realise things were said, not unprovoked, but things were said nonetheless. I must retract those statements, of course. Huge fan of the RFA1. And thank you, Rocket Factory Augsburg, for making this mod. This is amazing. And the reason I even discovered this mod is that they actually emailed it to me and they reached out to me a year ago. I completely forgot about it. I'm sorry, Rocket, but it's here now. So I hope you enjoy this complete butchering of your hard work by strapping. It's like an RFA1 heavy, isn't it? Like, 4 times the number of boosters. But, it's getting us to orbit nonetheless, with lots of Delta V left to spare. So I'm pretty sure this would translate perfectly well into the real world. There you are. Commercial crew, problem solved. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this little mod showcase of the RFA1 as I've got to do the obligatory spacewalk in low Kerbin orbit, then we can just deorbit. For a brief second, I was like, maybe I can use the engines to a Falcon 9 style landing before realizing that's kind of dumb because it's not. I didn't plan for that at all, so there wasn't enough Delta V. It wasn't aerodynamically set up, it rocket flipped, so just that's why I left the engines attached. And here we are parachuting down. Look at those beautiful parachutes. That's the single Mark 16 parachute, I want to say. It's a stock part, but with restock installed, so it just looks a lot nicer. And there we have it, a nice, safe, explosion-free touchdown in the beautiful, lush, long green grass, thanks to, of course, the very talented Games Links, creator of the Parallax 2 mod. Jebediah can just frolic through the field. As I say, a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members. Their names, of course, are right there on the left-hand side of your screen, and it's their generous support that allows me to keep on making ridiculous content like this. But I hope this ridiculous content could offer some entertainment in these trying times we find ourselves in. That's pretty much the end of the video. There's 2 other videos on my channel on screen that YouTube thinks you'll like. Hopefully there's a good picks for you. I don't think there's going to be a regular space this week on Monday because I'm in Germany. I don't know yet. I might put something together. I'm not sure. You'll have to just wait and see. Maybe subscribe.